You know, folks, I want to tell you a little story that's in the Washington Post today. But it's not just this story. Actually, it was last night for today. I want to address this story and make a bigger point. So I hope you'll bear with me. Oh, I know about Serena Williams. What do you want me to say? Absolutely classless, as far as I'm concerned. That's it. There's nothing else to say. I don't watch tennis. I just don't. It's not a national event for me. I don't care. There's a piece in the Washington Post, which is a real smear job against Ron DeSantis. Now, again, if you don't live in Florida, this is bigger than Florida, so stick with me. It further exposes the media, and it exposes another issue I want to talk about. GOP candidate for Florida governor spoke at racially charged events. Like I said, that doesn't sound like the DeSantis I know. What's going on here? By Beth Reinhardt and Emma Brown. Stay with me. Representative Ron DeSantis, a gubernatorial nominee who recently was accused of using racially tinged language. No, he wasn't. He was attacked by the Democrat Party in Florida, regurgitated by the broader media, when he talked about the socialism monkeying up the Florida economy. That wasn't racially tinged. But let's go on. Spoke 4 times at conferences organized by a conservative activist who said that African Americans owe their freedom to white people and that the country's only serious race war is against whites. DeSantis, elected to represent North Central Florida in 2012, appeared at the David Horowitz Freedom Center conferences in Palm Beach, Florida, and Charleston, South Carolina in 2013, 2015, 2016, and 2017, said Michael Finch, president of the organization. This is called Restoration Weekend. I haven't been there in years, but conservatives all over the country, of all stripes, conservatives elected to the House, elected to the Senate, governors, prominent conservative columnists have attended this event. And it's like anything else. You have no control when you have these big events and so forth, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, but it doesn't even matter. That's not even my point. Hundreds of people gathered to hear right-wing provocateurs such as Stephen K. Bannon, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Sebastian Gorka sound off on multiculturalism, radical Islam, free speech on college campuses, and other issues. I just want to say what an honor it's been to be here to speak, DeSantis said in a 27-minute speech at the 2015 event in Charleston, the video shows. David has done such great work, and I've been an admirer. I've been to these conferences in the past, but I've been a big admirer of an organization that shoots straight, tells the American people the truth, and is standing up for the right thing. So this is the David Horowitz annual event. The Florida gubernatorial campaign is one of the marquee races of 2018, pitting DeSantis, a Trump acolyte and lawyer in the Navy Reserve, against Andrew Gillum, the mayor of Tallahassee. Now listen to this, who would become the state's first African-American governor. Now, he is a Bernie Sanders acolyte. Do they say that he's a Bernie Sanders acolyte? No, you got to move on. President Trump has endorsed DeSantis, and Gillum is backed by progressive leader Bernie Sanders, an independent senator from Vermont. See how passive they are in describing Sanders? Sanders is an out-of-the-closet radical socialist. So DeSantis now is painted with a broad brush. This entire event that takes place is slammed as if it's a Klan meeting. In less than 2 weeks since the primary, race has become a central issue in the nation's largest battleground state. Why? Because the media want it to. Because the Democrats want it to. They don't want you to know that Gillum is a socialist. They don't want you to know that the mayor of Tallahassee is surrounded by corruption and controversy. No. And it goes on and on and on, the article. Now, this is how they treat a man who served his country, who went to Harvard Law School, who spent 6 important years as a member of the House of Representatives. This is what they try to do to this guy. Race is a big DeSantis, who chaired a subcommittee, who fought for the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, who fought for the moving of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Does he sound like some kind of a Klansman to you? Now, I want to contrast that with something. This is from Town Hall last week. Bill Clinton sits on stage with Louis Farrakhan at Aretha Franklin's memorial service. By Timothy Meads. This has a broader implication. Stay with me, America. Perhaps Slick Willie was too enamored by Ariana Grande's rendition of Natural Woman by the late Aretha Franklin to notice that he was sitting on stage with the infamous anti-Semite and hate-monger Louis Farrakhan. But whatever the case, the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton, gleefully shared floor space with arguably one of the most divisive and bigoted American figures in recent memory at yesterday's memorial, that's last week, service to the Queen of Soul. President Bill Clinton, Reverend Al Sharpton, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Minister Farrakhan were all given special seats in the front row at Aretha Franklin's funeral service. Franklin passed away, as you know. Since at least the early 70s, Franklin and Farrakhan have had some sort of friendship. Farrakhan, who became the leader of the Nation of Islam in 77, wrote after her death that in 1977, when I was a minister in New York City, Temple number 7, the police attacked our mosque. Within a few hours, Aretha Franklin came to the mosque, to my office, said that she saw the news, came as quickly as she could to stand with us and offer us her support. Farrakhan is notorious for making hateful comments against Jewish people, white people, and virtually anybody who's not black. As noticed by the Daily Caller, Farrakhan said in 2011, "Some of you think that I'm just somebody who's got something out for the Jewish people. You're stupid. Do you think I would waste my time if I did not think it was important for you to know Satan? My job is to pull the cover off of Satan so that he will never deceive you and the people of the world again." And he goes on and on. You can Google it. There's one hate-mongering comment after another after another. This man is never denounced by the Democrat Party. Never. You won't see stories in the Washington Post about politicians associated with Farrakhan. Maybe in passing, maybe there's a rare article. But he is a real bigot. He's a racist. He's a Jew hater. He's got ties into the Congressional Black Caucus. Keith Ellison has ties to Farrakhan, running for Attorney General in Minnesota. You barely hear about it. Deputy Chairman of the DNC. Ties with Bernie Sanders and Keith Ellison. Sanders supported Keith Ellison for chairman of the DNC. Sanders didn't just show up at a meeting with Ellison. He endorsed him. He embraced him. The Black Caucus doesn't just show up a meeting with Farrakhan. They endorse him. They embrace him. Bill Clinton didn't just show up at a funeral with Farrakhan. He embraces him. As much of the Democrat Party does. And not a word. Not a word. Linda Sarsour calls for people to stop I'm saying this on Rosh Hashanah, stop humanizing Jews. From the Daily Wire, citing Al Jaminer. Far-left Islamic activist Linda Sarsour made strong anti-Semitic remarks during a speech this month at the annual Islamic Society of North America convention in Houston, Texas, calling for the dehumanization of Israelis. The Al Jaminer report that Sarsour shamed Muslims for not being more politically active and said that if Muslims are not promoting the Palestinian cause, then they are part of the problem, saying, you, as an American Muslim, are complicit in the occupation of Palestinians, in the murder of Palestinian protesters. So when we start debating in the Muslim community about Palestine, it tells me a lot about you and about the type of faith that you have in your heart. If you're on the side of the oppressor, or you're defending the oppressor, or you're actually trying to humanize the oppressor, then that's a problem, sisters and brothers. And we got to be able to say that is not the position of the Muslim American community. Now, she has a long history of anti-Semitism. Received a ringing endorsement from Democratic Socialist Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez this week after she was arrested for disrupting Judge Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court confirmation. Ocasio-Cortez's endorsement of censor should not come as a surprise. She's also used similar language toward Israel. There is this growing hate, Jew hate, within the Democrat Party, within the organizations that are appended to the Democrat Party, among members of Congress. And the Washington Post tries to cobble together a hit job on a former member of Congress who's left his seat today to run full-time for governor of Florida, who doesn't have a racist bone in his body. The big story that's ignored by the free press, the golden age of journalism, is the growing, rampant hate for Jews within the Democrat Party. Within the Democrat Party. And I cannot help that there are so many self-loathing members of my faith who cannot give up their party. Because for so many of them, progressivism is their first faith. And so the Washington Post, we're all waiting. We're all waiting for your big story. Your big story with thousands of words of the connections between members of the Democrat Party and Farrakhan, members of the Democrat Party and CARE, members of the Democrat Party and Linda Sarsour, Bernie Sanders' connection with this element. Where is it? This would have been the perfect day. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Instead, you try to cobble together these outrageous smear jobs on David Horowitz, on Ron DeSantis, and other people, righteous people, people of goodwill, people with open hearts. This is one of the reasons Donald Trump can't get a break. Donald Trump can't get a break. Donald Trump is the greatest president for so many communities in this country that we've seen. That's right, I said it. The things that he is doing for the state of Israel, while they pretend from Charlottesville and beyond that somehow this man is anti-Semitic or somehow he's a racist, the things that he has done are truly unimaginable. He's closing down the PLO office because they cut off peace discussions even before they saw the deal. He's cutting off our monies to UNRWA, which was washing money into the Palestinian regimes for refugees. We actually have people who are refugees, third generation, fourth generation, which is ridiculous. Refugees from where? He's the guts to name the capital of Israel. He's the guts to move the embassy there. Gets no positive press from the lib media. And in the black community, it's the lowest unemployment rate in modern American history. Obama didn't do that. In fact, the truth is Obama didn't do a damn thing for the African American community. I'll be right back. The growing anti-Semitism within the upper ranks of the Democrat Party is indisputable. And the further left that party moves, the more anti-Semitic it's becoming. There's absolutely no question about it. And it's very fascinating to me that when you watch cable news, particularly CNN and MSNBC, they don't have any guests on that raise these issues, do they? They'll have a conga line of guests, typical race baiters, who will come out and tell you that Trump is this and Trump is that. In fact, they say it about virtually every Republican and conservative, and including people who support him, like you. But this issue, which is a real issue, which is a factual issue, which is a relevant issue, I don't believe there's any discussion whatsoever about the Democrat Party and its growing institutionalization of anti-Semitism. Same with our universities. That's the nature of progressivism, isn't it? I'll be right back. By the way, you ever wonder why big media really rejects what? How can we put this? Moral arguments. Condemn evangelical Christians or dismiss them, or Orthodox Jews and that sort of thing. Well, look at this. Les Moonves. Sexual harassment, he's out. Charlie Rose out. Matt Lauer out. What was the guy's name? Weinberg out. That's your media. So-called news media and the rest of it. Anyway, I want to continue, because it is time that the Democrat Party and the media and academia answer for this. Brett Scher over at the Free Beacon. UCLA agrees to host radical anti-Israel conference. Would they dare to hold a radical anti-South Africa conference? Folks, I tell it like it is. Would they? UCLA has agreed to host the annual conference for Students for Justice in Palestine, a radical student group that leads much of the anti-Israel campus activity at universities across the country, the Jewish Journal reports. UCLA has been under pressure to back out of hosting the group given its history of disrupting Jewish events on campus and promoting movements such as the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Campaign, BDS, which aims to destroy Israel through economic warfare. In its statement, the university said that it opposes the BDS campaign, but still feels obligated to host the event. Tell me, would it say the same thing about the Klan or neo-Nazis? Use of campus space by a student organization such as Students for Justice in Palestine does not mean that UCLA endorses the event or agrees with the views expressed by event organizers, the university said. For example, UCLA and the University of California Regents continue to firmly oppose boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. Especially in a university setting, controversial topics should be discussed thoughtfully and respectfully. Really? Really, is that how we talk about the Klan and the neo-Nazis? How is this much different than that? Seriously. How is this much different than that? And I'm going to tell you something, and I tell you this all the time. Because of our immigration system, you can see Europe too. More and more people, certainly not the vast majority, but more and more people are coming into this country and bringing their cultural hatreds with them. Their hatreds for this country, their hatreds for Israel, and so forth and so on. There's no demand of allegiance to our principles, none whatsoever. For the left and for the media, people overseas have a right to come into the United States, regardless of their views. Regardless of their views. Which is different than the past. Very different from the past. Obama talks about tribalization. This is tribalization. When you don't have assimilation, it's tribalization. We have no idea who the hell's coming into this country or what their purposes or motivations are. But such a group didn't even exist 20 years ago on our college campuses. Now it goes on. In a university setting, controversial topics should be discussed thoughtfully and respectfully, free from demonization, insult, or ethnic bias. Is that how conservatives are treated on college campuses? Is that why they're not free to speak without all kinds of police forces being involved, or they don't get to speak at commencement exercises? Is that what they're talking about? Who's the last conservative to give the commencement speech at UCLA. UCLA holds participants at campus events organized by registered student groups to the standards of behavior set forth in the UCLA Student Code of Conduct and applicable laws, and is committed to ensuring the safety of all our students. Sure. So this will take place in November. Our college campuses. Breeding grounds for anti-Semitism. Breeding grounds. My friend Stephen the other day said, I want to sit down with you. I want to talk. He's an African-American, wonderful, wonderful friend. You're right on the facts, but you need to know feelings and passions and emotions. I'm more than happy to discuss it. When you consider that 6 million Jews were exterminated less than 100 years ago, little over 70 years ago, and this stuff goes on in the Democrat Party. That's right, I said it. And this stuff goes on our college campuses. And when you consider that the Washington Post is trying to take a candidate, an individual, to smear an individual who they know is not a racist, Ron DeSantis, who they know is not, because they want to silence him and they want to scare people from voting for him. You can see the mentality of the left. Whether it's the official left in the Democrat Party, whether it's the academic left at the UCLA, or whether it's their surrogates in the media like the Washington Post. If you're a conservative, if you believe in the founding principles, if you insist on assimilation into our culture, if you believe in natural rights and natural law, not progressivism, then you're painted as some kind of a racist throwback. And yet it is we who embrace the philosophy of liberty for all individuals. That's our view. And it's one of the reasons we do not believe in an autocratic, centralized, iron-fisted government, which is where you go when you're a progressive eventually. There's no alternative. So the Democrat Party has some answering to do. The media have some answering to do. Academia has some answering to do, all of which have been thoroughly devoured by the progressive movement. Because, as I've said 100 times, 1,000 times, the progressive movement is the bastard child of Marxism. Surely it is. Mark, you must not understand Marxism because it's not. I understand it quite well, and I've written about it, and we've talked about it at great length, you and I. Doesn't have to be the purest form of Trotskyism or Maoism or whatever. It is what it is. So where are the stories in the media? And then you look at the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. You know what happened at the Anti-Defamation League? I assume most of you don't. But you know what happened there? And it means what it says, Anti-Defamation League. Well, it's a very old Jewish organization. Used to be pretty much on the straight and narrow politically, slightly left. You know who runs it now? A former special assistant to Barack Obama. Where is he? Where is he? Where is the group? Why aren't they putting out white papers and position papers on what's happening to the Democrat Party? Why aren't they condemning Bernie Sanders? Why aren't they condemning Bill Clinton? Where are they? Why aren't they condemning academia, which is so tolerant of this movement? Why aren't they concerned about what's happening on our borders and immigration? Why? It's because it's like the rest of the left in this country. Progressivism is their faith. Progressives. They may go to church. They may go to synagogue. They may celebrate the holidays. But in the end, aren't they secularists? Because in their heart, what comes first? What comes first? Big, ubiquitous, all-powerful government, which you see is going to solve all of our little human issues. Something's unequal, as it must be in a free society. There's all kinds of unequal stuff. In fact, you want there to be unequal stuff. I'm not talking about the rule of law. I'm not talking about the right to vote. But you want to be able to wear what you want to wear. You want to be able to make as much as you can make. Maybe you want to acquire as much property as you can and the other guy doesn't. Maybe you want to go to more classes and get higher degrees than the other guy does, who maybe wants to work right out of high school. Who knows? Who cares? That's what happens in a free society. All kinds of unequal human endeavors. But for the progressive, that's intolerable. They must control everything. That's the only way to fantasy land, you see. The only way. So we're waiting, Washington Post. I don't even wait on the New York Times. The New York Times covered up as best it could the Holocaust. We don't wait on the New York Times. We already know what the New York Times is. We're waiting, MSNBC. We're waiting, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, and all the rest. We're waiting. Where's your stories on the growing Jew hatred in the Democrat Party and academia? Where is it? You going to bring the scholars on and the professors on who are going to explain it? Or not? And how about you talk about the President of the United States who stands up against it? Who stands up against the Palestinian terrorists, the PLO, the PLA, all the rest of the alphabet soup. Cuts off American taxpayer subsidies, which are used to subsidize terrorists. How come he doesn't get plaudits for that? I'll be right back. The Democrats, they never talk about Franklin Roosevelt and the Holocaust. Why is that? Well, you know the story, ladies and gentlemen, don't you? There was a boat, big boat, with Jews who had escaped Germany. It's right off the shore, about a mile and a half off the shore. They begged to come into the United States. Begged to come into the United States. FDR refused. Sent them back to the Holocaust. I hear the Democrats now about open borders and all the rest of it and so forth. History is important, ladies and gentlemen. It's very, very important. That's why we talk about it so much here. That's why we teach it here. I can do all the Mickey Mouse that all the rest of them do, but I'm not going to do it. Bill, Phillipsburg, New Jersey, the great WABC. Go.
Hey, Mark. How you doing? Happy New Year.
Thank you.
I'm looking at things and I see all this recent outrage and this outrageous Semitism that's going on is, I think, in part and process due to the moves that the president is making here and there that's really throwing a monkey wrench in the progressive machinery. It's like they're getting... In
other words, this is hysterical pushback.
I believe so, yeah. I think so. And the media is just stoking it up. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops, it seems, as we approach the midterms. And I think a lot of that is because they know that they don't really have the blue wave.
Well, whether they know it or not, they claim to be a free press. They claim to report the news. And instead they concoct these hit jobs. And so I'm calling them out now, and I'm saying to the Washington Post, I'm saying to all the other big left-wing media outlets, they're not mainstream, why are you not covering this issue? Why are you not calling out the Democrat Party? Why are you not calling out the Democrat candidates? And we know why. Because they're part of that whole milieu, that whole mindset, that whole groupthink. But we're going to continue to push and push and push. I have a microphone. I have a lot of listeners. We have a lot of listeners in metropolitan areas, including with significant Jewish populations, for instance, in New York. And I'm making the point, and I'm going to continue to make the point, that the Democrat Party is a party with a growing anti-Semitic problem. And it's a fact. And the more they move left with the Bernie Sanders and that crowd, the more it reveals itself. And so they keep celebrating this 28-year-old. They keep celebrating these people. And I'm saying, celebrating them, these people should be denounced. Denounced. Meanwhile, they try and concoct racism when it comes to Trump or racism when it comes to DeSantis. These men are not racist. They haven't done a damn racist thing in their entire lives. They're not embracing any racists. Can't say the same for Bernie Sanders. When it comes to Jews, you can't say the same for Bill Clinton. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. And what exactly has Donald Trump done? What exactly has Donald Trump done that causes him to be called a racist? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's a fact. Now, the boat I was talking about, of course, was the St. Louis. And it came so close to Miami that one of the few survivors said he could still picture in his mind the palm trees in Miami. And it was turned away by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Turned away. I'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. You know, I'm always amazed how liberals in my faith will vote for the same candidates that this organization, CARE, effectively supports. CARE is the American mouthpiece for Hamas. And they'll wind up voting for the same candidates. Isn't that shocking? Isn't that amazing as a rational point? You want to see the true history of the Democrat Party, you go ahead and Google Joseph Kennedy Sr. and his affinity for Hitler. And on MSNBC, there's Al Sharpton. Why is Al Sharpton on MSNBC? Why is it on MSNBC? And why isn't Farrakhan denounced by the Democrat Party? Instead, they embrace one of his accolades, Keith Ellison. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. As they try to smear conservatives and Republicans who want nothing to do with any of this stuff. Let us go to Steve, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. You better tie everything down there, my brother. Go right ahead.
I'm going to try, Mark, and I love you. And by the way, we're both the same age.
Wow, there we have something in common.
Yeah, we do. And I'm a Catholic man,
yes.
And I grew up in a Jewish community.
Right.
Okay, so we were the only ones, on the whole frickin' street that had Christmas lights, right?
Yeah.
And I love my Jewish friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I can speak Hebrew. You know why?
No.
Because I went to a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah for 18 months when I was 12 and 13 years old.
Yes. You went to a bar mitzvah for 18 months. It only lasts about 3 hours,
Well, no, I had a lot of relatively, a good friends, and
yes.
so you know what? I investigated the Jewish faith and the Jewish religion.
And what'd you find out?
I'm a Catholic, huh?
What'd you find out?
I found out that it's a faith of, like, beautiful, like, love and so forth and so on, you know?
Yes.
And, like, I love the Jewish people.
All right.
And so all of my friends were voting for Obama, like, and, like, I tried to, like, tell them, like, 10, 11 years ago.
Yes.
This guy doesn't like the Jewish people, and, like, he doesn't like Israel.
Right.
This is like a Catholic...
Obviously, you persuaded a lot of them.
No, I didn't persuade any of them, and that's why Obama won 2 elections.
Yes. All right, my friend. Good to hear from you. I appreciate it very, very much. Corey, Junction Beach, Florida, on the Mark Levin app. How are you?
Hey, Mark. It's Jensen Beach, Florida. How are you tonight?
I know where Jensen Beach is. I was wondering where Junction Beach is. Anyway, go ahead.
To get to your point earlier about how much the left and the Democratic Party is becoming anti-Semitic and poisoning the youth of America, there was an article a couple of days ago on NBC News, a.k.a. Nothing But Crap News, that states as Israel moves right, young American Jews target birthright tours and protest. Mm-hmm. So these young Jewish kids are going over there, and according to this If Not Now, which is an anti-occupation group, is getting these kids all riled up to go on these tours. And
let me explain to the public what you mean. There are tours funded by Jewish groups, and in some cases the State of Israel, to bring young Jewish people from the United States and other parts of the world into Israel to see what it's like and so forth at a young age. Maybe they're teenagers, maybe they're 20, something like that. What's happening now, because the left is so evil and diabolical, is that these self-hating Jews you're talking about, they've infiltrated this process, and they send people, and people are involved now. Once they get to Israel, they start trashing the country. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, they get they're on the tour bus and they stand up and they start yelling and screaming about the Palestinian occupations and things, crazy like that. It's unreal.
And so even this is done by the left. It's disgraceful. Thank you for your call, my friend. We'll be right back. Brian, Baltimore, Maryland, the great WCBM. Go.
Hey, Mark. How you doing tonight?
All right, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. Your opening monologue in your first hour and pretty much your whole show, for those who didn't watch your show last night, Life, Liberty, and Levin, John Voight was fantastic. The fact that, what he has to stand up against in Hollywood as a conservative, I understand that in a microcosm, having worked in Montgomery County, across the river from you. But he had a very interesting point that I think is very poignant and applies to today. What caused him, you asked him, what made him change from a liberal to a conservative? And what he said was, after all the picketing, the riot, protesting and everything against the Vietnam War, it was a very small but a very vocal group. The U.S. never lost a battle in Vietnam, but they turned the tide of public perception against the soldiers, against the war. We pulled out, and thousands of people died in Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, all throughout South.
No, actually, a few million died.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, because then Pol Pot came afterwards and all that. So, and he realized he had blood on his hands because he was part of the movement that got us to lead those people and strand them. And what we're facing here today with the media, with those that you call the self-hating Jews that support these Democrats and these ridiculous, way out leftist policies, they are doing the exact same thing. They're repeating the exact same thing.
And by the way, there's self-hating Catholics, there's self-hating Protestants. You get my point, though. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody, they're self-hating across all religions. You are absolutely correct. But we are seeing the repeat of the 60s happening now 50 years later. And these people, they're small, they are a minority, but they are very loud, they're very destructive. And people, if we follow what they say and we kowtow to the pressure they bring, we're going to have blood on our hands. And it's going to be, I don't know if it'll be enough to wake people up, but it may be too late.
And I hope it's not ours.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is this very loud, active minority, and I think you're right, they control the levers of the culture. Whether it's Hollywood and entertainment, whether it's the media, excuse me, and so forth. That's what they're good at. Academia, insinuating themselves, secreting themselves into these enterprises, and devouring them.
And I was a communications major before, when I graduated college, and I worked in the local news media. And I know exactly how the newsrooms operate, and, I just realized I didn't like working inside, which is why I went to the fire department, and lo and behold, I end up seeing it in government on a local level, then the state level, and then we had a lot of federal jobs that we did with all the federal government agencies in Montgomery County. So it's, you get a small minority in, and they say one bad apple spoils the barrel. Well, it doesn't take many people to turn something really great into something pretty scary.
All right, my friend, as always, appreciate it, buddy. Larry, Queens, New York, the great WABC. Go.
Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I want to say thank you for the education you've given me over the last few years.
Thank you.
I'm a 62-year-old man. I'm Jewish. I'm single. No kids. I live alone.
Well, I'm not dating. I don't do that. Yes.
But I have family. I have siblings and all, and what's going on is so frightening. And I'm conservative, and I wasn't always, but I am now, and have been for the last several years. And I just, they're all, just Hillary and then Barack. They're the sweetest people in the world. And I had to spend the summer of 2016 with Hillary to the left, arrow on my sister's lawn and stuff. So seeing that.
By the way, what did that arrow mean?
It meant to the left. I knew what it meant.
I don't know what the hell it meant. Didn't the arrow go to the right? I don't even know what the arrow was for.
If you were standing in front of the sign, it went to the right. If you were pretending like Hillary was the sign, then it's to the left. It's her left. And I knew full well what it means. And I come from a family where everyone went to Ivy League schools and everything else. And I'm, to be perfectly honest, I'm just extremely frightened because I feel like I'm the only one in the family who sees what's going on with the anti-Semitism and the Democratic.
Is it not possible to pick one off at a time? In other words, to really focus?
I've tried. I sent one sibling last week. I sent him a couple of YouTube videos, like the history of the Democrat Party, where in 1826 they talk about the Democrat Party is the party of the white man. I mean, they just don't see it. I sent him D'Souza's trailer for Death of a Nation. Nothing, no response. They're all unhinged. They're all crazy.
Well, if I were you, I'd find a new family. All right, Larry, I appreciate your call, my friend. I really do. Very brave. Hang in there. We'll be right back. Joseph, Brooksville, Florida, the great WGIG. Go.
Mark, this is absolutely a huge, I'm so glad to be able to talk to you.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
I wanted to tell you that I am, changed Democrat to Republican, and that was during the Clinton era. And Trump, I've lived through every one of the presidents, and Donald Trump, when he got elected, I was so happy because I said, finally, we're going to have a president that's got young gungas. And I as a war vet from 72 to 76 with the USAF over in Southeast Asia, I got Agent Orange, but I'm
sorry to hear that.
I just want to let you know how much I love listening to you every night and how much I love President Trump, and he's got to win in 2020.
Well, thank you for your service. I'm sorry about your illness, and I'll tell you what, don't hang up. Let's get Joseph a free 1-year subscription to crtv.com. Don't hang up, Joseph. Let's make sure he gets that. All right, folks, I shall return.